So, so then a few days ago, actually, there was a killing outside the Israeli embassy in Washington. Obviously, two people got killed. One was Aaron Lischinsky, and another one was Sarah Milgrimi, I think her name. Anyways, so they were about to get engaged, and what happened is just that a 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez killed them, and when he got arrested he shouted free Palestine. So they this got a huge uproar from the Israeli side, and they made a huge issue out of it, and they are calling it an act of terror and all those things. But the most important thing is just that they are making it an issue, saying that okay, we need to protect every Jews or Zionist because they are under threat, from everyone. It's like everyone who is saying free Palestine, they are threat. They are threat to the Jews, they are threat to the Zionists. It's like that. And Israeli Prime Minister made an statement after that, and the statement basically saying that everyone who is saying free Palestine is basically Nazis. He is comparing them to the Nazis. So here is Israeli Prime Minister, and this is what he had to say after the killing. So I think you can look at it, I guess, right?
Yes.
They want to annihilate the Jewish people who've been in the land of Israel for 3,500 years. I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. We got the most savage slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. They want Israel to stand down and accept that Hamas's army of mass murderers will survive, rebuild, and repeat the October 7th massacre again and again and again, because that's what Hamas has vowed to do. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history. Now these...
Uh, so yeah. So he's basically asking France, Britain, and also I think one of I forgot the other one. Sorry, Macron,
Canada, I think.
Canada. Sorry, yeah,
Canada.
Canada. To support him to continue the genocide. So this happened because I mean publicly, Macron and Starmer and Trudeau actually did. Criticize Israel a bit in a way, but at the same time, in private, obviously Britain is sending warplanes and other surveillance technologies to Israel. But anyway, it looks like Netanyahu wants them to publicly support Israel and its genocide, and he also wants Macron and obviously Carney to do the same. So the thing is that it looks like this incident, obviously it can't be right now, it can't be proven, I guess, right now that it's an inside act or otherwise. But the thing is that it looks like this gave them an opportunity. The Zionist regime of Israel gave them an opportunity to justify its genocide against Palestinians and continue to do so until they ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. What do you think about that? Because it's
Yeah,
an opportunity for them.
well, yes. I mean, obviously, the reasoning is ridiculous that Netanyahu uses. I mean, the fact that one individual, an American, killed two individuals associated with the Israeli embassy. Whatever he did should not fall upon the Palestinians, right? It's not their fault. It's not the
Right.
people in Gaza's fault. And, of course, when he says, oh, when you reward butchers and rapists and child killers, he could be talking about the IDF, right? I mean, that
Right.
they're actually the child killers and rapists, etc. So there's always an incredible amount of irony when Netanyahu talks, and hypocrisy. But what I'll say also is that, you can go back to Vladimir Lenin, who was very critical of terrorism for the reasons, that are still apt today. In the end, they give oxygen not to your side, they give it to the other side. That is to say, this is predictable that Netanyahu would use this act in this way, that he would punish the Palestinian people for this act. So if this guy, and we don't really know what the whole situation is, as you said, we don't know, was it a false flag, whatever, but let's assume he is who he claims to be. He claims to be a Palestinian rights activist. If he really is, and he really wants to help the Palestinian people, he did just the opposite by his action. He hurt the Palestinian people. And that is totally predictable, because this was not an action informed by, the desire of the masses. In the United States, the protests have been peaceful. And there has not been an incident like this for a year and a half since the genocide began, right? And what this guy does is, one, he helps to delegitimize the Palestinian rights community. And again, he gives justification to Netanyahu to continue the genocide. So again, if this guy wanted to help the Palestinians and help the Palestinian rights cause, he did the opposite. He undermined it. And again, Comrade Lenin talks about this, over 100 years ago. He talks about ultra leftism as an infantile disorder, meaning you're a child if you do this sort of thing. You are disconnected from real politics. It's an individualistic act, which may be satisfying to the individual until, of course, he's in jail. I don't know how long he'll be satisfied, but it is not helpful to the cause.
Yeah, but in defense of Elias Rodriguez and his acts, the thing is that maybe some people might say that, okay, so peaceful protests are going on for a long time, years and years after years, but the thing is that no solution came after all that. So the thing is that these guys did something to wake up people or something like that. Maybe one can say that, okay, he targeted the wrong people. I mean, these guys are not relevant enough to kill or anything like that. He killed, maybe he should have killed Ben Gavir, I mean, who came to US a few days ago. So the thing is that if someone does some things like that, this is a, I mean, sacrifice to another level, because maybe he will go to jail for the rest of his life, I guess, right? So how can someone say things like that, right? Maybe his act is not justified in a way, because do you think it's they are not morally responsible to the cause, or is just the act that is justified for the few section of the people, like an anarchistic act, not
Yeah,
justified by the socialist or others, I guess.
yeah, it does seem like an anarchistic act. And again, the people he killed had very little to do with the genocide. I guess the one guy he killed was, would publicly defend the genocide, but again, he still has little involvement in it, and his death will not change the balance of forces in Palestine, right? It's not going to help the Palestinians in any way win the war. So certainly the target made no sense. Again, the target was bad in that, you know, in the minds of a lot of people, he basically killed innocent people, which again is not going to help the cause. So, and that's the problem with this. And we could, you know, we could try to intellectualize, you know, well, who would be a good target for this? And you mentioned Ben Gvir, who certainly has a lot of culpability for this. But again, just killing him, would that really help? My guess is no. My guess is it just inflames the situation more. And I'll give you an example. I didn't even know about this example until this event. I was hearing Norman Finkelstein talk about it. I guess in 1938 there was a guy, a German Jew, who killed some Nazi officer or some Nazi leader in response to what was becoming the increasing repression of Jews in Germany. And the result of that killing, while no one criticizes what the guy did to this day, no one thinks it was morally wrong what he did, it led to the Kristallnacht, right? It led to the great pogrom against the Jews, which really began the violent repression in earnest against them. So again, did it help the Jews that he did that? No, it backfired on them. So I think one has to look at that history again, and one has to read Lenin on this. I mean, who also, by the way, he knew personally about the you know, kind of dangerous nature of this, because his brother, you might remember, tried to kill the Tsar, Lenin's older brother, and he failed, and he ended up going to jail. And again, Lenin learned from that. Vladimir Lenin learned from that mistake. I think if you're going to do a dramatic act to try to support the Palestinians, and I can sympathize why people would want to, I would like to, but I think you should do something that's going to be more positive, nonviolent, like the people trying to bring aid on these flotillas. I think that's a great dramatic act. There are people who are going to walk from Cairo to the Rafah crossing to protest that crossing be open for aid to be brought in. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that garners sympathy. I think whatever dramatic act you do should be calculated to gain sympathy, not to repel it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what this guy did was calculated to repel it. I mean, either he was dumb, really dumb, or he was working for the cops. I mean, that's why people think it was a false flag, because he appears to be so dumb that he would think this would be helpful in any way. You know, he would be sorely mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to be very tough on this sort of thing, because it does hurt the movement. It will hurt the movement, which has been quite disciplined. It has been a very peaceful movement up till now. Honestly, I'm surprised how peaceful it's been, given how terrible things are in Gaza. I'm surprised there hasn't been more of this sort of thing, right? But when someone goes off on their own and does this, it hurts the movement, undermines it as a peaceful movement. Yeah, that's my feeling on it.
Well, I was talking to Mark Telliano other day, and he was saying that if Washington wants, I mean, they can stop this genocide just, within an hour with a phone call and all that. So the thing is that I think some of the anarchists, or maybe I'm not sure about that, that Elias is an anarchist and was an anarchist. I don't know. I don't think
He
also.
was in the we know he was in the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Not currently, but we know he used to be. So if
Right.
again that was real, then he was probably not an anarchist. He was
That's
in
why.
fact some sort of socialist. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's not a socialist act. It wasn't a socialist act. But the thing is that
No.
the act, as you said, that you also think that it was an anarchistic act. Whether it's stupid or not, that's another case. But the thing is that the thing which he did, and also people like him also did in the past, don't you think that it's a failure of dialogue? It's a failure of justification, like it will end someday, will put pressure on the politicians. So the thing is that in anarchy, obviously, and in anarchism, people believe that okay, we don't trust politicians, we shouldn't trust politicians and all that. So as they don't believe in politicians, that led them to act like this. That's why. So you don't you think that okay, this act maybe as you said, maybe doesn't justify at all, because I mean it will hurt the cause. But at the same time, these people, when they look at it in a different perspective, saying that, or looking like this, like I mean it will never get resolved, it will never get solved, because I mean these are Nazis. I mean nothing will get in their mind, because in the case of Hitler, he just wouldn't stop till the last days, right? So, and also in the case of Palestinians, is it isn't like much support from, or even any support from the foreign governments. Like they try to sanction the Israelis, but it's not that the people on the ground. I was talking to Mark Treliano other day, and he was saying, okay, the foreign interventions actually matter if China or Russia or even North Korea or even countries from Latin America are on the ground, they're soldiers on the ground and fighting against the Israelis in a way. But it doesn't look like that will ever happen in a way. So that
No.
led, yeah, so that led to people like Elias Rodriguez or others like him do this kind of act, whether it's justified or not. Because these people think that okay, it will never get resolved, or it will never get any result for the Palestinians.
Yeah, it was an act of desperation in that way. And again, I understand it. I understand an act of desperation. I think you explained it well why someone would do that, would be tempted to do that. But I don't think that that makes it a good idea, right? I mean, I think acting out of desperation actually tends to be a very bad idea. It almost never is a good idea to act out of desperation because you're not thinking clearly, right? You're not thinking about the consequences. And I don't think this guy either understood the consequences or thought them through in what he did. Also, I don't know how much of an activist he really was. Like, how desperate really was he? I mean, there are people who are losing family members in Gaza, whole families, scores of people in their family have been killed, entire bloodlines. That's desperation, right? This is a kid. I had no idea if he had any desperation, right? He looked fairly well fed and happy. Um, so he's just carrying out his little fantasy. And again, it's a very American thing to do in that way. It just, the optics are all bad. If I saw any redeeming quality in what he did, I would say it, but I don't. I just don't see it.
Well, Dan, one can say that he was desperate for the Palestinians. He was desperate to kill the Israelis, the Zionists, because he thought that these are Nazis in a way. And also the thing is that my question to you is just that okay, so let's say his act was stupid and all that thing, but at the same time, do you think the peaceful protest and all this socialistic act will resolve this conflict, or will resolve this genocide? It's not a conflict, obviously. So do you think in future?
Well, I think it's tough to say. I think that, excuse me, I think that over time it can. I think not just in countries like the Western countries, but I think protests in places like Egypt, in the Arab world, could make a huge difference, right? If they could coax their governments to really oppose Israel, because none of those governments do. They say they do, but then they sell oil to them, and they even help them logistically with the genocide. So you know, I don't see. I agree. The only other thing that could really stop it is a military intervention by a Russia, by a China, by Egypt. But again, I don't see an individual act like what this guy did producing that. I think the protests, the peaceful protests, have more of a chance to produce that and are having an impact. They forced those Western leaders to say that what was happening in Gaza was wrong. It's true they keep supporting that genocide, but they're still saying it's wrong. That's a shift. Things are shifting in the direction of the Palestinian people. And I think we need to keep pursuing those things. Again, I think there should be dramatic acts like the flotillas. One's going to leave from Sicily on Friday. Greta Thunberg's going to be part of that. June 15th, there's going to be this walk from Cairo to the Rafah crossing. There's now veterans, U.S. veterans, having a hunger strike in front of the UN. That's what should be going on. That's unless, that seems to me to be, I can't guarantee that that's going to be successful, but what I can guarantee is it's not going to give fuel to the other side, right? It's not going to backfire in a way this other thing did. So it's like the Hippocratic Oath, right, of a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first oath? Do no harm. That's the first oath. Whatever you do, don't do something that could hurt the cause. That's lesson number one.